Hi there, and welcome to How to Pass Telephone Interviews. My name's Richard McMunn, and for the duration of this training module, I'm going to teach you how to pass a telephone interview. Now, it's important that before I begin that you get yourself a pen and a piece of paper and take a note of the important hints and tips that I'm going to provide you throughout the duration of this module. You'll find that there's a number of really crucial tips that will help you to pass your telephone interview. I've obviously listed them down during this module whilst you're watching it, but I would also encourage you to take notes, because that's how we learn. If you write things down, then they're more likely to stick with you throughout the duration of the program, and once it's finished you can take away the tips that I provide you with and put them into practice. Okay, a little bit about me. There's me on the right hand side of the screen, so you get an idea of who's talking to you. My name's Richard McMunn. I am the UK's most successful career expert. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of people to gain employment in many different careers, and you'll find my advice is invaluable in helping you to successfully pass your telephone interview. Just a little bit about my background. I served 4 years in the Royal Navy many years ago. I then spent 17 years in the fire service, and during that time I was heavily involved in recruitment and training. So I basically trained people how to get into the fire service, and also served as a training centre instructor for many years, helping people to pass the fire service recruitment course, but also teaching people in various different areas on how to become qualified in different areas. So I've got lots of experience in recruitment and training. After 17 years I left the fire service and I started the company called How to Become Limited, which is where I'm operating from right now. But basically the company howtobecome.co.uk helps people to get into specific careers, and that's what I'm trying to help you to do today. I recently completed a diploma in management studies. I'm a published careers guidance author, and I've created over 150 different books and products, and you'll find many of those on Amazon, in Waterstones, and also on the website howtobecome.co.uk. As I said, I'm UK's leading careers expert. I don't say that lightly. The reason why I state that is because if you go on my website, you'll see that I've got hundreds of testimonials of people who've used my products and found a career afterwards, which is fantastic. So they just use my information and my guidance. I run weekend training courses, so you might want to come on one of my training courses and meet me personally, and I'll teach you how to get a career. I've passed myself over 95% of interviews that I've attended, and I've done that not because I'm special in any way, but because I follow a sort of like set area of preparation, and I always use it time and time again. For example, before I go to an interview, I always make sure that I carry out a number of mock interviews. So I basically predict the questions that I'm going to get asked, and then I sit down, I get somebody to fire those questions at me, and I respond to them, and that basically increases my confidence. Now, in relation to a telephone interview, it's a little bit different, because you shouldn't have as much nerves as what you would do if you was going to a face-to-face interview. But having said that, they can be still sometimes quite stressful, and therefore you need to prepare effectively. Okay. So, module content, what am I going to teach you and talk to you about? Well, first of all, we're going to look at what a telephone interview is, so you can get an understanding of what the person assessing you is looking for. And that brings me on to the next thing, is what are they looking for? If we know what an interview is, we can sort of like basically dissect and explain what the interviewer is looking for on the telephone. Now, it might be a member of the organisation that you're applying for who is interviewing you, or sometimes larger companies will outsource a telephone interview to sort of a recruitment agency. It doesn't matter who's carrying out the telephone interview. What is important is how you come across, and obviously how you respond to the questions. So we'll also take a look at how you can prepare for the telephone interview, and I will also provide you with a number of sample questions and tips on how to answer them. Okay, let's get straight into it. Now, why do you think companies have a telephone interview? Well, it can be for a number of reasons. I would say, if I'm really honest, one of the main reasons an organisation will have a telephone interview is because they don't want to meet hundreds or scores of applicants face to face. If they do that, then it can be extremely time consuming and expensive. A telephone interview can last for say 5 minutes, sometimes they will go on to maybe 20 or 30 minutes. But they don't have to meet someone. They can put someone in a room and say, right, I want you to ring up These people, put them through an interview, ask them a number of questions, and if you think they are suitable, then they can come along to the next stage. So, in harsh terms, it's basically a sifting process, okay? And because it's a sifting process, sometimes some candidates don't really take it that seriously. Obviously, you are going to take it seriously, and you need to prepare for a telephone interview, I would say, as seriously as you would do for a face-to-face interview. You know, especially nowadays, there are many hundreds of applicants for many different jobs, and the competition is fierce. Therefore, you need to be on the ball. You need to prepare fully for it, which I'm sure you're going to do. So, they basically have a telephone interview as a sifting process, but it can be when a candidate has to travel such a long way and they don't want to put the candidates through all that hassle of travelling that distance. When there are a large number of candidates, and that's basically another word or another phrase for a sifting process, to whittle down the candidates to those who are suitable to go through the process. I mean, I've personally interviewed hundreds of people for different jobs in the past, and sometimes I have thought to myself, what are you doing here? It would have been better for that person to have a telephone interview because they clearly didn't have the skills or the attributes or the qualifications to carry out the role. Now, an application form is a great way of assessing people, but you don't actually have any interaction, and therefore as an assessor it's very difficult to ascertain whether that person is suitable. So that's why another reason people have telephone interviews. So an example is when screening by CV is difficult, when for example personality is more important than experience or qualification, and that can be in different types of roles such as customer service roles or customer service assistants. Obviously a good personality is important, especially in sales as well. If you're required to, to be a sales representative, then you need to be a confident person, a positive person, and somebody who's good with dealing with people. I'm very good at dealing with people, but I've never been in a sales role, and to be honest, I don't think I'd like to be, because I think, you need to be quite a full-on person. You need to be extremely, extremely confident. So I think that kind of role for me wouldn't be suited. I'm more suited to like a managerial role or a training role. So sometimes screening by CV can be difficult. When a large part of the job will involve talking to people on the telephone, and many jobs are like that nowadays, like those in customer service centres, those kind of roles will definitely have a telephone interview. So it's not just about you responding to the questions, but it's about how you come across. Hopefully you will feel that I'm talking to you in a concise and succinct manner. I'm not waffling. You can hear me. I'm clear to speak to, and I'm generally quite positive. Obviously, if I was talking to you in a monotone way and not very exciting, then you wouldn't feel that you were getting value from me in terms of a teacher. Try and put yourself in the shoes of the person who's interviewing you. You obviously want them to be positive, and the interviewer wants you to be positive, so therefore you need to be as positive as possible on the telephone, and I'll come on to that a little while later. So that's the reasons why organisations will have a telephone interview. So what is a telephone interview? You may think, well, everybody knows what a telephone interview is. Yes, that could be the case, but let's explore it because it will help you to prepare more effectively. Well, it's basically the first stage of a selection process. Sometimes it comes directly after an application form, but it's basically the first stage for them to get a feel of what you are like as a person. It obviously assesses whether you have basic skills, qualities and attributes. So we'll think about those for a second. Basic skills, qualities and attributes. So how do you know whether you have those? Well, basically it's in relation to the job description or the person specification. Now those two, I would write these down. The job description and the person specification are very, very important, and they are basically the blueprint to your success. You need to get a copy of them before you actually go through your telephone interview, because they give us a number of key clues. Let's just take a quick look now at a sample job description. So job specification and person specification for a role. So this is for an office and facilities manager. If you look at the primary responsibilities here, it says in relation to like answering incoming calls, take and pass on accurate messages, using the most efficient messaging service appropriate. So you could get asked a question during the telephone interview. Give us an example of where you've answered incoming calls. How did you take on and pass accurate messages? What did you do to make sure that the information was accurate? So you could say, well, when I was working in a previous role, I was actually answering incoming calls, and in order to make sure that I passed on accurate messages, I would write down the information that I was receiving, and I would then verify with the person I was speaking to make sure it was accurate. So I was basically cross-checking the information that I had. So here's another part of primary responsibility, is to greet and welcome visitors. If that was in a job description, I would be preparing a response for that question that would go, can you give an example of where you've had to greet and welcome people? How did you make them feel comfortable? What did you say to them? And they might even say to you, give us an example of what you would say to me if I was coming into your shop or coming into your centre. And I would say something like, nice to meet you, my name is Richard. Just to let you know, you're going to be more than welcome to stay here. Please make yourself at home. Can I take your coat? Would you like a drink while you wait to be seated? Something like that. Again, it will see there, assist the team with tight deadlines. For example, photocopying, preparation, collation and binding of documents. Again, another question that you could get asked. Can you give an example of where you've assisted or worked in a team environment? So the message which I'm trying to get across to you here is that if you get a copy of the job description or the person specification, then you are certainly going to have more of a chance of passing, because you can basically predict the interview questions that you are going to get asked. So I would get a copy of that JD and that person specification, and I would get a highlighter pen. This is what I would do, and I would highlight the key areas and the key requirements, and I would think up of sample questions that I could get asked and prepare for responses to them. Okay, so basically a telephone interview is a brief assessment of your skills, motivations and knowledge. And as I already mentioned, they are looking to hopefully invite you along to the next day, but they don't want to waste your time, and they certainly don't want to waste their time, because it costs them money to put you through a selection process. So you need to be motivated, and you have to have the right skill set and the knowledge and motivation. So what do you need to know? Well, you need to research in relation to the role, and that can be done by reading the job description and the person specification. You may want to ring up the company before you have your telephone interview and just say to them, is it possible that I can come along and speak to a member of staff there who's carrying out a similar role, to find out what it's like. So you can take along a notepad and then find out exactly what the role is about and the skills that are required. But you should be able to find that actually on the person specification and job description. You also need to know a little bit about the company that you are applying to join. What are the company like? Have they won any awards? Where do they operate from? What is their USP? A USP is their unique selling point. So you could say during the telephone interview, when they say to you, tell us about our company, say, well, you carry out these services and these functions, and you supply to different companies across the world. You operate out of these different areas. So given the areas they operate out of, the company has so many employees. So if it has 900 employees, you could say that the unique selling point of the company is to provide excellent communication and customer service skills to the general community, that kind of thing. So know about the company, and you can do that generally by going on their website. I would also strongly recommend that you have a look for a company's mission and vision. Okay, you should be able to find those on their website. So find out what their mission and vision is and learn it. So again, if they say to you, tell us about our company, you can say, well, your mission is X, Y, and Z. You know, they may have goals and objectives. They may have a charter. If you're applying for a customer services role, I would find out what the customer service charter is, and I would learn it off by heart and be able to recite it during the telephone interview, because anything like that you can come up with will certainly give you good points, and they'll think, hey, this person has found out lots about our company. Let's get them along to a face-to-face interview or an assessment centre. You need to know the requirements of the role. It's pointless applying for a job if you don't know what the requirements are, because they may say to you, tell us what the requirements are. Tell us what experiences you have that are relevant to the role. So I've already mentioned there about the person specification. Think about your experiences, and again that goes back to using your highlighter pen and highlighting the different areas on the person specification that are relevant to the role. So if you need to be good on the telephone, think of an example when you have to do that, when you've done that in the past. You know, if you have to deal with customers, then it's likely you might have to deal with a complaint. How did you deal with the complaint? You deal with complaints by listening carefully to the customer. Involve the customer as much as possible. sympathize with them, apologize if the company is actually in the wrong, and then set about your resolution. Tell them what you are going to do, how you're going to resolve the situation for them, check with them that they are happy with your resolution, and then follow up, say a day or two later, to see that the person is happy with what you've done. So always keep them updated. So that's how you would deal with complaints. Okay, they are bound to say to you, tell us why you're applying for this role. And I'll come on to that in a little while longer when we look at some sample questions. But that is a very simple question, but one that many people fall down on, because they may come up with, well, it's something that I've always wanted to do. Well, that's fine, but have a bit more creativity. Think up of a better reason why. You can say that you've been studying different roles, and this job caught my attention because I have these skills, and I believe I'm perfectly matched to this role because I've got the experiences in the past. I'm enthusiastic in this role. I love dealing with people, and I believe that I can bring along a lot to your company and I can achieve my targets. Be a bit more passionate about it than just saying, oh, it's something that I've always wanted to do. Okay, what can you offer them? So they might say, what can you offer us? Why should we give you the job as opposed to the next person? And in relation to that, I'd be thinking about positive keywords and phrases. So when I'm talking, I would be saying I'm an enthusiastic person, I'm very confident, I am quick to pick up different skills. I always make sure that I keep on top of my training. I'll make sure that I read company policies and I always abide by the rules. So make sure that you are positive when responding and explain the different things that you can offer. Your strengths. Well, when responding to that, that's quite easy. Obviously, the more difficult one is what are your weaknesses, and I'll give you tips on how to respond to that later. But I would say in relation to your strengths, you need to think about the strengths that actually match the person's specification and job description. So again, with your highlighter pen, look at the qualities and skills. If one of them is dealing with people on the telephone, you could say one of my strengths is actually dealing with people on the telephone. At my last company, I was constantly praised during my appraisal for dealing well with customers. And also why you think you are good for the role, and you will only know why you're good for that role, so make sure you carry out plenty of preparation. So let's have a look. What are they looking for? Well, they want to see whether you have the right knowledge, you have the right skills, the right attributes, the desire and motivation for the role. If you do have all of these, then you will be invited to attend the next stage. Now, one important word there, I think, is very important during telephone interviews, and that is the word of desire. I have a passion for teaching people. I want you to pass your telephone interview, and I mean that. I really do genuinely. I have a desire for helping people. When you're talking to the interviewer on the telephone, have desire for the role. Okay, be passionate about it. I know, it's very difficult to get a job nowadays, but be passionate, because the reason why I say that is because desire and passion are contagious. People pick up on them and they feel it and they feed from it. So if you try and think of a situation when you've been, cast your mind back to when you were at school or maybe college or university, and someone's giving a lecture. Can you remember somebody who was really rubbish at giving lectures? And the reason might be not because they weren't very good at the subject, because they didn't have much desire or passion for it. You need to be motivated. You need to come across in a positive manner, and that accounts for half of the battle to get through the first stage. It's okay having all the flash answers to the questions, but if you come across down or depressed or feeling sorry for yourself, then you're probably not going to get invited back. So concentrate on desire and being passionate about the role. Okay, so how do we prepare for our telephone interview? Interview questions and responses. As I've mentioned before, I think it's important to use a job description and person specification to try and find out or try and match the kind of questions that you could get asked. I have always done this in the past when going to interviews, and I've been generally, I would say, successful with 80% of the questions that I predict. Yes, of course, sometimes there are questions that come out and I think, I wasn't expecting that, but for 80% of them I can predict them, and it's easy for you to do the same. Another thing is to actually have a look online and try and find some online chat forums. You may find some. There are hundreds of chat forums out there that you will be able to find. Let's say you're going for a job as a bank cashier. If you type in bank cashier interview chat forum, something might come up on a major search engine, and they will be able to give you the types of questions that they've got asked. That's a way of sort of predicting the questions that you might get asked during your telephone interview. Okay, your CV. Have your CV to hand, because they might say to you, talk me through your CV. Now, you don't have to go in depth, but the beauty of a telephone interview is you can have documents with you. Okay, when you go to a face-to-face interview, they don't generally allow you to have those documents that you can read from. And a tip there is to be ready for the interview questions, because you can have sample responses already laid out in front of you. You know, I would just have bullet points. You don't want to be reading parrot fashion, because they'll be able to tell if you are, and you don't want that. So you need to come across as natural, but have your CV to hand. Preparing in terms of the time and location. If they say we're going to call you at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, make sure you are in a suitable location. You don't want to be in the supermarket, shopping at Tesco's or Asda, walking down aisle number 9 with your shopping trolley waiting for someone to ring you up, because you're just going to have lots of distractions and they'll be able to pick up on that. So make sure you are in a quiet location. And that might mean, you know, if you've got children at home or something, you might want to get someone to look after them whilst you have your telephone interview. So think carefully about the time and the location. Have a notepad and a pen at the ready, because they may give you certain information that you need to take a note of. I would also take a note of the questions that you are asked, because you might get asked them during the face-to-face interview. Now, I would have bullet points to remind you of how to respond to the questions. As I mentioned earlier, don't have it sort of parrot fashion written out in front of you. Just have bullet points that you can look at, because what you will be doing, if you've got it all written down in front of you, you'll be searching for your question and they'll be able to hear you shuffling the papers around. You don't want that. So just have bullet points of how you're going to respond. Have notes of the questions you may wish to ask yourself, because they're going to say to you at the end, look, have you got any questions you'd like to ask us? And it's generally quite good practice to ask 1 or 2 questions. I will give you a couple in a second of what you can ask, but don't generally go overboard. So if they say, right, have you got a question, then you say to them, yes, how long would it be before I find out whether I'm successful? And they say, okay, it'll be probably you'll find out tomorrow. And they'll say, have you got another question? You keep going on. You don't have to ask questions to impress them. And that is an important point. Don't ask sort of technical questions or questions that try and impress them. They're not that fussed. They will have made up their mind by that point whether you're going back. So you don't have to ask questions. I've done that before. If they say to me, have you got any questions? I might say, no, it's okay. I did have some at the beginning, but you've answered everything that I need to know. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to coming along, hopefully, to a face-to-face interview. Thank you very much. Something like that. Have a copy of the person specification next to you, okay, because this is a quick win. If they say, tell us about the role, what are the skills and qualities required to carry it out, well, you've got the information there in front of you. So think about how you will answer the phone. Now, I'll be honest, if somebody rings me up on my mobile phone, I'll generally answer it and go, hi. You know, when they're ringing up to interview you, this is a little bit different. Now, a company might ring you from a number probably that you won't recognise. It might be a withheld number if it's coming through on your mobile, but I would certainly answer the phone in a positive manner. And if it was me, I would say, hello there, Richard McMunn speaking, how can I help you? Okay, something like that. Don't just go, hello. You know, you need to be quite positive and start off on the right foot. And you might want to actually print off a sheet of paper that says be positive with a smiley face next to it in big bold capital letters and stick it on the desk in front of you when you're carrying out the interview, because that will remind you to stay positive. Because remember, 50% of the battle is being positive and passionate about the role. Remember that word desire. Be also in a reception area. What you don't want, and this is, I've done it before when I've been interviewing people on the phone, they're in a bad reception area and then they lose the bars on their phone or something, and I am presuming here that you might be using a mobile phone, because most people do. It'd be better to have a landline, because then you haven't got the problem of going out of reception. But if you do have it on a mobile, make sure you're in a full reception area. The last thing you want is for it to go dead, and so make sure your phone is also charged. You don't want the battery running out. It would be horrendous. And also no distractions. I've mentioned earlier on, if you've got children or something, make sure they are looked after. Or you've got pets, you don't want the dog barking when the postman comes and delivers the mail. They're all just little things, but they do go a long way to making sure that you are fully prepared. Okay, some really important tips. How to answer the phone. As I've already mentioned, if it was me, I would say, hi there, Richard Buckman speaking, how can I help you? You know it's going to be them, and they'll go, oh, hi Richard, my name's Brian, I'm here to interview you, blah blah blah. Oh, hello Brian, nice to meet you. So make sure you are really positive. Be enthusiastic and positive throughout. I think that is really, really important. Don't waffle either. I know it's difficult sometimes because you are going to be nervous and they will accept that, but try and be succinct. Don't rush. Answer the questions, yes, but always be positive, but don't waffle. And also avoid using jargon. Some people feel that they need to impress the interviewer. I can't understand this. They don't have to. You can impress them with your responses, but don't try and impress them with, jargon that you know about their company and their organisation. If you're going to say about their USP, say, your USP, your unique selling point is X, Y, and Z. Always be polite and respectful. So, if it was me and I was talking to an interviewer, I might say, "Oh, hello, sir, nice to meet you." They are going to come round and say to me, "No, it's okay, you don't need to call me sir, you can call me whatever." Or Mr. Smith, or Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Brooks, whatever, but just be polite. If they invite you to use their first name, then use it. Okay, it's okay, but don't overuse it. And don't become too familiar. So at the end of the interview, you don't want to be going, "Oh, so what you got planned for this weekend? Anything nice?" You need to be serious. You need to be formal. But obviously you can use their name if they let you. But I would start off by using them as Mr. and Mrs. and using their surname. So use the other person's name regularly throughout the conversation, but not all the time. If they're asking you questions, you don't want to be going, "Oh, well, Mr. Brown, blah, blah, blah." You don't want to be doing that all the time, okay? But you can use it so that you remember their name. And that's why you need to have a notepad in front of you so you can write down their name. Also, and this is very important, is use the company name a few times. I want to work for XYZ Limited because of. So it shows that you are really focused on their organisation. So let's have a look at some questions that I would recommend you prepare for. Can you please tell me a little bit about yourself? And that's generally a start-off question. So tell me about you. Tell me about yourself. And if I was responding to that question, I again would be using the qualities that I've got that are relevant to the role. So let's say that I'm applying for a position as a customer services assistant. I would say, well, as you know, my name's Richard. I'm 39 years old. I'm a very positive and enthusiastic person. I have a very good educational background that involves dealing with people. I've got a customer services qualification, an NVQ in customer service. So I'm very passionate about dealing with people. I like to keep myself educated, and at the moment I'm currently studying for a diploma in management because I would like to develop myself. I'm also a very positive person. I like to keep myself physically fit, physically active. I'm a stable person. I come from a family background. I've got a daughter who's 18 who I love very much. In my spare time, I spend time down the gym or with my family. So you can see the kind of thing that I'm trying to come up with. I'm trying to paint a picture that I'm an educated person. I like dealing with people. I'm nice to be around. I keep myself fit because that means that if you are fit, you're likely to be not prone to stress or going off sick, which can be a problem for many companies. I'm a family man, which means that I'm stable, so I'm more likely to stay in the role. So just keep it brief, but try and put yourself in a positive manner. Why did you apply for this position? And I can almost guarantee you will get asked that. Many people now, and I see it, they apply for loads and loads of different jobs, and I call them serial job applicants. That's not in a horrible way, but it's just the fact that they want a job and they don't really care what it is. So this is why they're asking for this kind of response to see what you the reasons why you're applying for the position. So if I was applying for a customer service role, I'd be saying something like, I've applied for this position because I genuinely feel that I've got the skills and qualities that match this. I've been looking around for a different challenge, and this job jumped out at me because it requires you to be good with people, which I like doing. There is an element of stress involved, which I like. I don't want to be in a job where I'm sat down behind a desk just doing nothing all day. I like the challenge of actually meeting different targets, because that's what I'm like. I like to have different challenges and I always rise to them. I also noted in this company that you're very professional and there's a chance for me to progress. There are promotion opportunities, and once after a few years, hopefully I've got really good at this job, I'd like to apply for different positions. So, I'm coming across in a positive manner and I'm giving genuine reasons why I want to apply. How would you summarize your main skills? And I would match the job description and the person specification. So I'd highlight them down and then I would state what these are. Dealing with people. I'm a great supportive team member. Okay, I keep myself physically fit. I'm a great communicator both verbally and in writing. Great at supporting people, great at dealing with complaints, that kind of thing. What projects have you undertaken lately? Now, if the role that you're applying for is project driven, then have a good example of a project that you've undertaken. Now, it could be an academic one, it could be something at work, but it might be something at home. And there's nothing wrong with saying, well, actually, to be honest, in the last 6 weeks, I have a project which is ongoing at home, which is totally refurbishing my house or decorating. So what I've been doing, I've been going around the house, decorating each bedroom at a time. I've got an action plan that I use. So this week, I make sure that I decorate the kitchen. Once that's done, I'm going to move on to the bathroom, and that's just a bit of a random type of response or scenario. But the point is, it demonstrates that I'm organised because I'm using like an action plan. So I'm making sure that I'm using an action plan, and it keeps me organised. So use those keywords. What do you know about our company? So make sure that you go on the website that you're applying for and find out as much as possible about the company that you are applying for. Okay, so find out about key people, how many people work for them, whereabouts they operate out from, how long have they been going for, have they won any awards, what is their mission, what is their vision, do they have any aims and objectives, do they have a customer service charter. Okay, and you can find out all of that information on the website, and also find out who the Chief Executive Officer is, the Managing Director who is responsible at that company. What are your reasons for considering leaving your current job? Now, what you don't want to do, and I've had this before, is somebody once said to me, well, I don't really get on with my boss, he doesn't want me there and I'd like to move on. Immediately I'm thinking, okay, that might be the case, but why would I want to employ you if that's, you've got a problem going on at work? If that is the case and you are fed up with your job, that's fine, but don't say it. Alright, this is a big piece of advice. I would say, even if I didn't like my job, I would say, to be honest, I've really enjoyed my current position. I work for a great company at the moment, but I'm looking for a fresh, new challenge. I've been doing this job for X amount of time. I feel now I'm ready to move on, and your company jumped out at me. When I saw the job advert, I thought, hey, this is a fresh new challenge, something different for me. You may have different reasons why you want to leave your current employment, but be very careful when responding to that kind of question, especially if it relates to something like a grudge that's going on, or if you've got problems at work. I'm not saying that these problems that you may have aren't genuine, because I'm sure they would be, but just put yourself in the shoes of the person who's interviewing you. How do they feel about it, about your response? So be very positive and upbeat about the company that you're considering leaving. That's all I will say. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I've had some strange responses to this question in the past. Somebody once said, I want to be where you are. I was a district manager at the time. I was quite high up in the fire service, and they said, I want to be where you are. First of all, it wasn't achievable in 5 years, but secondly, I just thought it was a little bit too overconfident. I would have much preferred that person to say, well, to be honest with you, I'd love to aspire to your position, but in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that I prepare for the job well. I'm going to become, to be respected amongst my peers and in the organisation, to be a really good worker, somebody who is positive, and then hopefully get progression. So if I was responding to that question and someone said, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would say, well, I hope I'm working for your organisation. I would work towards being a respected member of the team, somebody who is seen as someone who can achieve their targets, somebody who has excellent company appraisals. I would like to progress in the organisation, but I want to make sure that I'm very good and competent in the role that I'm in before I move up. And that's a great response to that kind of question. Okay, what can you bring to this company? And again, think of positive keywords. I can bring a freshness, an alertness, a level of enthusiasm, somebody new into the team. I believe that I can motivate people. I'm a great communicator. I'm a quick learner, somebody who can adapt and reliable and flexible. I won't go off sick. I feel like I can really put my heart and soul into the organisation. If you've got examples in the past of where you've actually achieved things whilst in that role, then tell them what they are. If you've won any awards or you've got any great appraisals, tell them about these appraisals that you had. Please tell me about your salary expectations. Now, this can be a tricky one. Some people go in too low and some people go in too high. I would say be honest. Okay, if you genuinely think, okay, that at the moment your salary expectations, they're not too high. You've maybe not had that many jobs. You could say, well, I've not had that many jobs, or this is my first job, therefore I'm prepared to work at a lower end of the salary. Whereas if you've got a lot of experience, then ask for a higher salary. But just the key to this is to make sure you're honest. Not just honest with them, but honest with yourself. Okay, because if you say it's a job for £20,000 and the salary range is say 16 to 20,000, if you go in and you say, well, I want 20,000, they're going to come back and say, why are you worth 20,000? If you can back it up and you've got proven targets that you've done in the past, or you're fantastic in your role, then great. But just again, the key is to put yourself in the shoes of the person who's employing you. Okay, don't go too low and don't go too high unless you are really, really worth it. Okay, questions to prepare for. Carrying on. What do you know about the role? Again, you can find that out from the person specification. What are your strengths? And again, I would play on my strengths that are relevant to the job description and the person specification. So I'm a great communicator. I'm great at dealing with people. And if you can give examples, then make sure you do. So you can say, I'm great at working with people. For example, and my last job, I was always put in as temporary supervisor whilst the manager was off on leave, or when he or she was away for whatever reason. So that's what my strengths are. I'm good at dealing with people, and the company recognise that. What are your weaknesses? You can either answer this in one or two ways. You can be honest and give a weakness, all right, and you might not be good at turning up to work on time. If that is your weakness, don't say it. Okay. Also, in terms of sickness, that's not very good. I run my own company, and in the past I've had people going off sick, and you can't afford it. It's one of my pet hates. Yes, genuine sickness, no problem whatsoever, but when you're off sick all the time, and companies are really clamping down on this nowadays, so hopefully you will have a good sickness and it won't be a weakness. So what are your weaknesses? Well, don't say I don't have any, because anybody who does say that, I would suggest is lying. But you need to think of something which is going to put you across in a positive light. I've used in the past, when someone said to me, what is your weakness? And this is a genuine one. I would say that sometimes I can get a little bit irate with people when they are late for meetings, or they don't match my expectations in terms of deadlines. And sometimes I need to curb that. I might say something to them, not inappropriately, but I might express my dissatisfaction that they are late, or the goods that I've ordered have turned up late, and I'm always trying to improve myself in that manner, and not to sometimes say something. And then I'll turn around and say, but in some ways that's a positive aspect, because I am, a genuinely caring person, that I want, if I ask for something to be done, I need it to turn up on time. That kind of thing. So I'm turning my weakness around into a strength. So try and think carefully about that weakness that you have. Do you have any questions you wish to ask us? Now, at the end, they may say, have you got any questions you wish to ask? If that's the case, you could say something like, is there the opportunity for progression? Because that shows that you are enthusiastic and you're motivated. Also, how long would it be before I start if I'm successful? That shows to me that you're raring to go. Okay, as I said earlier, don't ask questions that try and paint you in a positive manner in terms of you know more than them, because that doesn't work. No interviewer wants to hear that. And if you haven't got any questions, just say no. Thank you very much for answering all my questions. It's fine, I don't have any, and thanks for interviewing me. Okay, a final statement. I think this is very important. At the end of the interview, what are you going to say? I would say something like, thanks very much for interviewing me today. It certainly sounds like the job that I would very much enjoy. I'm sure I can contribute a lot to your company, and I'd love the opportunity to visit you and show you what I can do, and I would love the opportunity to attend the next stage. So that's the kind of thing that you could say, something like that. So make sure you are very, very positive during the interview. Telephone interviews are generally quite short in length, but if you prepare for those questions and follow the tips that I provided, you won't go too far wrong. Now finally, if you visit my website www.howtobecome.co.uk, then you'll be able to find lots of information and further products that you can use. You can attend a course with me if you like, or I've got different DVDs that you can obtain to help you pass your interview. All that's left for me to say is thank you very much for watching and listening, and I wish you all the best in your pursuit to passing your telephone interview.